Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's show. My name is Spencer Walsh. Thank you so much for joining us here today. We have a good one for you, as always. We are talking about Representative James Clyburn, the number 3 House Democrat and the number 1 representative who takes big pharma money, stepping into the race in Ohio's, I believe, 11th district in a very similar way to Hillary Clinton. Of course, in favor of Shontel Brown, the opponent of progressive, and as the New York Times calls it, Bernie Sanders acolyte, Nina Turner. Also, further efforts to smear and concern troll Ilhan Omar for literally the same exact comments that she made 2 or 3 weeks ago have come back up again thanks to a new interview by the always repulsive Jake Tapper. We'll also take a look at, first today, the New York mayor's race really getting messed up with thousands of test ballots, fake ballots, being counted by accident. We'll give you the full explanation on how they managed to do that over at the New York City Board of Elections. We have a great one for you today. Thank you so much for listening. If you like today's show, please be sure to rate, review, give me some feedback at SBW272 on Twitter. We really, really do appreciate it. Thank you very much. Welcome to Newsflash. All right, so as I mentioned before, we are starting with this latest today on the New York City mayoral elections, and things have gotten a little bit chaotic over there. So this is the New York Times talking about this. The New York City mayor's race plunged into chaos on Tuesday night when the City Board of Elections released a new tally of votes in the Democratic mayoral primary and then removed tabulation from its website after citing a discrepancy. So already things you can realize. Eric Adams was complaining about the results that were released that showed a big boost for Garcia, and definitely some benefits for Wiley as well. And, yeah, of course, those results had released and suggested the race between Adams and his 2 closest rivals had tightened significantly. But just a few hours after releasing the preliminary results, the Elections Board issued a cryptic tweet revealing a discrepancy in the report, saying that it was working with its technical staff to identify where the discrepancy occurred. By Tuesday evening, this was just last night, the tabulations have been taken down and replaced by a new advisory saying that ranked choice results would be available starting on June 30th. So that's today. So they're clearly going to have to redo these results. That's going to be interesting. And of course, that's all factoring with absentee ballots that have just come in on the 29th, which are supposed to be largely from Manhattan and areas that Adams is not supposed to do that well in. As we talked about, Adams running on kind of this weird mix of identity politics and kind of populist rhetoric, but also being an incredibly pro-charter school, pro-real estate, pro-Wall Street campaigner in terms of policy platforms, who he's getting his money from, all that stuff. He won mostly on a coalition of support from a large political machine, being the Brooklyn borough president, and being able to really effectively reach out to minorities, which in the outer boroughs are incredibly important and what you need to win an election. It was a little bit easier for him because it was a little bit more of a fractured field. Normally, you kind of have to tie together a large minority coalition with more kind of educated liberals that we see in more white liberals that you see in probably more upper class in the Brooklyn areas, kind of close to the river, and also Manhattan as well. This time around, it seems like Garcia and Wiley had a lot of that support. So, yeah. So by Tuesday evening, again, these tabulations have been taken down, and the new results were supposed to be released starting on June 30th. Then around 10:30 p.m., the board finally released a statement explaining that it failed to remove sample ballot images used to test its ranked choice voting software. When the board ran the program, it counted both test and election night results, producing approximately 135,000 additional records, so additional votes that should not have been counted. The ranked choice numbers, it said, would be tabulated again. This extraordinary sequence of events seeded further confusion about the outcome and threw the closely watched contest into a new period of uncertainty at a consequential moment for the city. And this is a big problem. Like, the Board of Elections has always been quite bad. It's been plagued by dysfunction and nepotism allegations, and this was the first try at implementing ranked choice voting on a city-wide scale. It really has not gone well. I mean, ranked choice voting is definitely not a solution to all we hold that is wrong about our political system, but it's definitely, I think, better for third parties, better for outsider candidates to get more of a say, just by its very nature and by the fact that, you know, you can rank people. For example, you know, that was the kind of plan where there was a third party Green Party candidate in the Maine Senate race, who I believe was named. I don't know. I forget their names, but the Democrat and the Green Party person were supposed to, through ranked choice voting, kind of make a coalition to get the Democratic person into power over someone like Susan Collins, but that did not work, and Susan Collins ended up winning by a pretty good amount. Whether that's just the nature of that particular campaign, I don't think we have enough body of evidence because ranked choice voting has not been used on a very broad scale, but this is certainly showing. I mean, we're obviously going to have to wait for the full results to come in, which they should be coming in relatively soon, and more details on that, more, you know, results and reporting and ranked choice voting tabulations now that the absentee ballots are in. But what we do see is a pretty large amount of confusion, at least, and the idea that this Board of Elections has not run this whole situation well. Skeptics have expressed doubts around the board's, specifically this board's, ability to pull out the process, though it has been successfully used in other cities. Under ranked choice voting, voters can list up to 5 candidates on their ballots in preferential order, and if no candidate receives more than 50% of the first choice votes in the first round, the winner is decided by a process of elimination. As the lower polling candidates are eliminated, their votes are reallocated to whichever candidates those voters ranked next, and the process continues until there's a winner. Again, just kind of a quick overview of what ranked choice voting is there. The Board of Elections released preliminary unofficial ranked choice tabulations on Tuesday afternoon, showing that Adams, who had a significant advantage on primary night, was narrowly ahead of Catherine Garcia in ballots cast in person during early voting or on primary day. Maya Wiley, who came in second place on the initial count, was close behind in third place. The board then took down these results and disclosed the discrepancy. So the results may well be scrambled again. Even after the Board of Elections sorts through these preliminary tallies, it may count around 124,000 Democratic absentee ballots. It must. It's not going to. It's not may. It's not going to think about it. It's going to count these absentee ballots. Once they're tabulated, the board will take the new total that includes them and run a new set of ranked choice elimination rounds, with the final result not expected to mid-July. So pretty much they have to go through everyone's vote, see who they wanted, and see who the least amount of people wanted, eliminate them until there's 2 people left, and whoever is more there, and obviously it's going to be a majority there, would win. So some Democrats are bracing for a pretty acrimonious new chapter in the race, and the incremental release of results by the Board of Elections and the discovery of an error may stir distrust of ranked choice voting and the city's electoral system more broadly. What I think whoever wins this race is going to have to be in the kind of enviable position of, you know, screwing around with, not necessarily screwing around, that implies a negative connotation, but just making the necessary changes to this Board of Elections so that it runs smoothly. I don't know how you do that in a way that doesn't look so blatantly political, like, you know, just got working the refs. But, you know, Eric Adams, for example, if he wins, he will certainly not hesitate, I think, to make some pretty severe and serious changes. He was out there openly questioning the results of the primary before he even knew there was a discrepancy about it. It turns out there was a discrepancy, but what we do see here is this just kind of genuine acceptance that's been happening of, you know, the stop the steal, the need to kind of question, or, you know, the not need, but the political acceptability of saying that these counted official elections are not technically official in this instance, but these, like, you know, tallied election results may not be what they seem, and that is simply becoming much more of a bigger and bigger thing. So in a statement Tuesday night, Maya Wiley, she joined Adams in expressing her displeasure. She laced in the Board of Elections, calling the error the result of generations of failures that have gone unaddressed, adding, sadly, it is impossible to be surprised. Today, we have once again seen the mismanagement that has resulted in a lack of confidence in results, not because there was a flaw in our election laws, but because those who implement it have failed too many times. The BOE must now count the remainder of the votes transparently and ensure the integrity of the process moving forward. Garcia said the release of the inaccurate tally was deeply troubling and requires a much more transparent and complete explanation. Every ranked choice and absentee vote must be counted accurately so that all New Yorkers have faith in our democracy and government. And, of course, Adams noted the unfortunate error and emphasized the importance of handling election results correctly. So if Adams were elected, he would be the city's second black mayor after David Dinkins. Some of Adams' supporters have already cast the ranked choice process as an attempt to disenfranchise voters of color. Again, literally, this guy, he is making everything about, identity politics, political correctness, all that stuff, which, maybe in New York where people are, obviously a little bit more liberal is a better idea. He's saying that, the fact that Yang and Garcia bound together to kind of help Garcia win and get across the line there in a last-minute campaign. Adams compared that to poll taxes and like Jim Crow era voting restrictions in kind of a crazy way. He said that to increased tenant protections was going to disproportionately impact these people of color who are landlords. Landlords of color, folks. Let's think about the LOCs out there, the landlords of color, Not the fact that, tons of minorities also rent properties and, two can play that game. It's such a completely awful way to look at things because there are people both races on both sides of the dynamic in modern-day America, but that does not explain or properly attribute who is getting screwed, as it were. So this argument really has intensified among some backers on Tuesday afternoon as the race appeared to tighten. This ranked choice process is kind of this ranked choice process is disenfranchising voters of color. It's kind of ridiculous. But it's just really what it seems like is, and I'm trying to get the this is a very, very weird argument. I am trying hard here. I'm going back through, I'm clicking through the links here, the hyperlinks in this New York Times article, to try and get a sense of why they would possibly say that ranked choice voting disproportionately impacts black candidates. So it says 74% of New York City voters approved ranked choice voting in 2019. Under the new system, if a candidate wins the majority of first choice, the process can, but with the mayoral primary less than 7 months away, at the time this article was written, some candidates are worried that that the system could hurt black candidates. They argue that a traditional approach would increase the chances of a runoff where black candidate might perform better in a contest with only two names on the ballot. Like, what does it being black have anything to do with doing better with two names on the ballot? I do not get it. Critics can also question whether the state's problem-prone Board of Elections can roll out a complicated system during a once-in-a-century pandemic. Two of the six council members who brought the lawsuit, Adrian Adams and Danique Miller, lead the council's Black, Latino, and Asian caucus. The other was filed by Frank V. Carone, the counsel to the Brooklyn Democratic Party. So, yeah, he has no investment in keeping the status quo. Yeah, but someone, by the way, who is probably a pretty damn close ally of Adams. Being the Brooklyn Democratic Party council. So they say all throughout the country that ranked choice voting is working well for communities of color, while New York is a totally different city. It may not work well for Adams, so, by the way, this is Mrs. Cumbo, who is a council member who represents a district in Brooklyn, Lori A. Cumbo. So it just seems to be that, people are being a little bit sour grapes over this, just being like, any possible system that's going to hurt me politically is also going to be bad because I'm black. And just weaponizing that. I mean, I think it has to be broadly accepted that this stuff is happening. Like, it feels kind of icky to say that, kind of coming in from your ivory tower, like, this is just, race baiting. I'm saying that as someone who's white, but it's happening, and it's being used to, like, when you say something like, tenant protections hurts landlords of color, like, you are weaponizing identity politics, woke culture, whatever, and you're doing it in a way that not only hurts working class people, but also hurts way more working class people of color, because there are more people in the working class, and there's a bunch of people, especially in New York City, of color in the working class as well. And I'm willing to bet there are more people who are renters than landlords who are minorities in this city, in New York City, and probably in the world, in the country at large. So, yeah, very, very weird situation happening at this point. So surrogates for Adams again have suggested, without evidence, that an apparent ranked choice voting alliance between Garcia and another rival, Andrew Yang, could amount to attempt to suppress the votes of black and Latino New Yorkers. Adams himself claimed the alliance was aimed at preventing a black or Latino candidate from winning the race. Again, what about Asians? Yang could win the race. First female mayor of New York? Really? Are you trying to be sexist and anti-Asian, especially after all the Asian hate that's going on? That's incredibly problematic from Eric Adams. Like, this is something he should apologize for. Like, at least just make a public apology. Come on, like, this is contributing to Asian hate. Like, you see, you can work yourself up in this ridiculous, like, froth about identity, because it goes so many different ways. 2 can play that game. 3 can play that game. We could all just be shoving identity crap up each other's faces while the Republicans destroy the country. Like, that is how a lot of this stuff works, and it is by design that it is done that way. So, to advocates of ranked choice voting, the round-by-round shuffling of outcomes is a part of the process of electing candidate with broad appeal. But if Garcia or Wiley were to prevail the process, which was likely approved by voters in 2019, which was approved by voters in 2019 ballot measure, would likely attack fresh scrutiny, with some of Adams' backers and others urging a new referendum on it. So it does seem, though, that the BOE in New York was attracting ire from all corners Tuesday night. No surprise. Betsy Gottbaum, the city's former public advocate, runs Citizens Union now, which was a government group. She warned the entire country was watching the Board of Elections, and they deserve something. They deserve a Board of Elections that they can have the utmost faith in. And yeah, these are key test experiments here for ranked choice voting as a whole. So it's going to be pretty important and influential to see how they fare. A comparison between first place vote totals released on primary night and those released on Tuesday offered some insight into how 135,000 erroneous votes were distributed. The bottom 4 candidates received a total of 42,000 new votes, roughly 4 times their actual vote. The number of write-in ballots also skyrocketed from 17,560 to 17,000 from 1,000, by the way. So it's like 17-time increase there, with Adams and Yang receiving the highest number of new votes. It was not known, however, how the test votes were reallocated during the ranked choice voting tabulation, making it impossible to determine how they affected the preliminary results that were, again, released and retracted. So we are still waiting on those real results and those full results that are excluding these quote-unquote test ballots. But it is difficult, not unheard of, for a trailing candidate in a ranked choice election to eventually win the race through later rounds of voting. That happened in Oakland, California in 2010 and nearly occurred in San Francisco in 2018. So the winner of the Democratic primary, who's almost certain to become the city's next mayor, will face Curtis Sliwa, who is the winner of the Republican primary. So, yeah, we'll keep that up to date. We'll follow some of these live results. So we are still waiting on these tabulations, which should maybe come out later today. So it's going to be interesting to watch. All right. Be back in a minute. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening to the Spencer Walsh Radio Network. I want to tell you a little bit about our lineup for this summer. We start off with Newsflash, all new, of course, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. You can't miss it. It's our flagship show to get caught up on everything happening in the world around you. But stick around for some history and some entertainment. Learn about all the things you never learned in history class every Thursday with Hidden History. And get ready for a fun night out, or turn your living room into the club with uncultured live mixes every Saturday all summer long. The Spencer Walsh Radio Network is your home for summer sounds coming all season long. Every podcast is available everywhere, so you have no excuse not to listen. All right, ladies and gentlemen, a very, very interesting and dramatic moment in the Ohio 11th District primary. We're taking you over to now across the country. Let's just take you back. This is a very, very personal thing for me and tons of other Bernie Sanders fans. This is personal because James Clyburn has stepped into the race to endorse against Nina Turner, endorsing Shontel Brown. But here in the New York Times, again, from Jonathan Weissman, early last year, as Bernie Sanders was surging through the first Democratic presidential primary races, Representative James Clyburn of South Carolina, a kingmaker in his state, stepped in to endorse Joseph Biden before the primary there, helping vault the former vice president to the nomination. Again, this is a guy who has, at least in South Carolina, has shown that he has some pretty legitimate power. 50% of, I think, black voters, the stat was, say that they voted on Clyburn's endorsement, pretty much propelling him across the line and taking someone who had, in paper, had no money compared to even other top moderate contenders, had not won any states, performed atrociously in all of them, should be dead on arrival by any other normal metric. Him winning South Carolina and then going out to do well in Super Tuesday was absolutely crucial when it came to the nomination, and Clyburn's endorsement in the South Carolina win played probably the biggest role in determining the outcome out of any single factor. So that's why it's pretty personal when yesterday Clyburn, the number 3 House Democrat, took aim at one of Sanders' most outspoken acolytes, Nina Turner, a hero to the left, you got that right, who is surging in her campaign in Iowa, up with around 50% of the vote in a poll about a month ago, to claim the seat left vacant by Housing Secretary Marcia L. Fudge. A rare intervention into a party primary. And by the way, this, I think, speaks incredibly well of Nina Turner, that they're that worried about her as a force, as a uniting force, and really how much deep hate the right wing of the party has for the left. I think in the Labor Party, at least, it's really a lot more open because the left, I think, has been more successful in claiming the levers of power in the Democratic Party, or in the Labor Party over there. But I think the hate is still the same. Like, people like James Clyburn see no identification with people like Nina Turner, Bernie Sanders, AOC, Ilhan Omar. They see them as opposing forces inside their own party who are there to make them look bad. Like, I think on a really mental, psychological level, like, I think especially they really, really don't like being told. You saw that with the Whoopi Goldberg clip that was circulating around saying, "We did the work." That's how these people feel. They feel like people should be kissing their feet for taking, billions, or not billions, but up to a million, at least $1 million over the last decade in pharmaceutical money, which is something Jim Clyburn did, top recipient of pharmaceutical money in the House. We feel like that he feels like that every single Democratic voter, every single liberal in this country should bow down in praise of him because, I don't know, he marched with Martin Luther King at one point or another. He met him at one point. I don't know how that's supposed to work. But it really is a quite strong and quite open determination. I mean, whether it's, quite personal petty hate, like, it definitely was for Hillary, after her loss in the primary, or whether it's just a hatred of the left, I don't know. But it is going to be interesting to see how this turns out. And it's all they're all proving it. They're all on the same team. They know where their bread is buttered, and they're going to protect their own here. So he said his decision to back Mrs. Brown, the chairwoman of the Cuyahoga County Democratic Party, was not about Sanders or even Turner, who remains the favorite before the contest in this August 3rd heavily Democratic district. But he took a swipe at what he called the sloganeering of the party's left flank, which has risen to power with calls for Medicare for all and to abolish ICE and to defund the police. So pretty much, yeah, they're pushing stuff. It's not about how much I hate Bernie Sanders, how much I did my best to stop everything he was about and all his people. Bernie, he was an enemy of Bernie Sanders. He was an enemy to the left in the campaign, coming out specifically to try and stop them, and he did. He said, "What I do is try to demonstrate by precept." And by the way, whatever he says here, like just coming into this, think about how rare of a move it is for someone to come into a pretty much an open primary where there's a clear favorite, someone who is going on to the Democratic nomination, and to try and create, fractious infighting, lack of party unity among the Democratic Party. If the roles were reversed, if this was like, I don't know, someone coming in for an open primary on the left, like AOC getting involved in primaries. They hate it when she does that. They're like, oh, party unity. You guys, you want to destroy the Democratic Party. You're working to help the Republicans, all that stuff. But party unity only, like, just like everything for these people is a political tool. It's by choice. It's like when you want to do it, it's fine. But when you don't, you don't. And that is what we see here. It is an incredibly rare, incredibly unprecedented move for someone to, like Jim Clyburn's stature, to get involved in a primary of this level of consequence. It's an incredibly safe blue seat. It's someone where there's a clear favorite to be the nominee. Weighing in for the number 3 House Democrat, weighing in on something like this is just unheard of. And it shows you that there is a real deep fear, a real deep hatred bubbling under the surface of the Democratic leadership. And I don't quite know exactly which it is, but it's going to be interesting to see if both Clyburn and Clinton can maybe get something done here. Clyburn, I think, is definitely much more of a threat in South Carolina, but, it's going to be interesting because this time I think Turner does a lot better than Bernie in her district than Sanders did nationwide in terms of black support. But Sanders was strong in black support. He led for the last 2 or so months of the primary, at least, in terms of support for minorities. It's just a fact. It's not a fact that's talked about. It's a fact that's very conveniently cast aside and ignored. But it is a fact. So here's what he said. What I try to do is demonstrate by precept and example how we are to proceed as a party. So again, this is what he This is what he is about. Like he considers himself, I think, in a very authoritarian way, someone who knows what's best for the party, is in charge of the party, and despite being 70, 80, 90, just like all these people are, Steny Hoyer, Pelosi, all of them are incredibly old, but also incredibly attached to power. Very, very similar to the Soviet presidium, the gerontocracy of old. That these same people were incredibly critical against. I mean, these people are all a good decade older, and they're still going. And they think that it is their way or the highway for the Democratic Party. It's about holding on to power by any means necessary, and they clearly view this Cleveland election as a big threat to that. So he says, when I spoke out against sloganeering like "Burn, Baby, Burn" in the 1960s and defund the police, which, by the way, was the Black Lives Matter protests were critical in terms of registering voters and getting grassroots interest in organizing that state. The Democratic Party could not be bothered to do under Clyburn. But he says, "Burn, baby, burn," and defund the police, which I think is cutting the throats of the party. And I know exactly where my constituents are. They're against that, and I'm against that. Like, yeah, what is he for? Doing exactly what the pharmaceutical companies want? Like, it seems like that. They're paying his salary. They're paying his campaign. Like, they're the reason why he keeps getting elected. So, like, you really have to question, like, what is this guy for? What does he really want? And I think that is very fair. So this special election in Cleveland is highlighting the vast and generational divide and ideological gulf that the Democratic Party faces. The entire House leadership heads towards the sunset, or shall we say the sundown. Clyburn, Speaker Nancy Pelosi, and the House Majority Leader Representative Steny Hoyer are all octogenarians, leading an increasingly useful, diverse, and restive caucus. Pelosi even agreed to vacate her position after this Congress. In the next year will be an ideological battle over who succeed her. Brown has the backing of the Democratic establishment, including not only Hillary Clinton, Richard Cordray, a former Attorney General, Representative Joyce Beatty, former AG of Ohio, Representative Joyce Beatty, Chairwoman of the Congressional Black Caucus, moderate Democrats like Representative Josh Gottheimer, a real psycho, and David Trone of Maryland. So again, people who may be good at very good at raising funds from private equity banks, pharmaceutical companies like Clyburn is and stuff like that, but don't have a lot of on-the-ground name recognition power in terms of fundraising, and that's the thing, and that's why she's not getting too much support, at least in a poll from a month ago. Now, who knows? Turner has the endorsements of much of the House Progressive Caucus, including the so-called Squad, represents AOC, Ayanna Pressley, Ilhan Omar, and Rashida Tlaib, and will be a strong new voice, and a smart new voice, an aggressive new voice, who may finally whip this, fraud squad, as some people call it, into shape. So the left is increasingly focused on black and Hispanic districts, they say, as safe areas for ideological candidates. You can't take any one race and paint it as a whole larger aggregate for the whole country, Ocasio-Cortez said on Tuesday. But I do think Nina is a beloved leader in the progressive movement, and the degree of excitement that she's generated in the grassroots energy and organizing in her direction is a real testament to the asset that the base of our party can provide. So Turner, New York Times writing here, Turner is undoubtedly a divisive figure as well. Pretty much because she worked for Bernie Sanders and was critical of the Democratic Party. So, yeah, she's divisive in Washington circles, in Clyburn circles. But, in terms of saying things that, most of the country agrees with, it's very true. She was a prominent surrogate for 2016 Sanders campaign and a national co-chairwoman for his campaign in 2020. She never minced words about what she calls corporate Democrats. She declined to say whether she voted for Clinton in 2016. And before Election Day in November, she suggested the choice between Donald Trump and Biden was the choice between a bowl full of excrement and half a bowl. So, I mean, in terms of representing what most of the country thought about that election, that's not divisive. I got news for you. Maybe divisive in Washington, maybe divisive with, James Clyburn and all his friends in the Democratic Party, but that is not divisive. An event last weekend, Turner sat beside rapper Killer Mike, another supporter of Sanders, as he suggested that Clyburn sold out cheap to Biden, delivering his endorsement in exchange for making Juneteenth a federal holiday. He's got to say it. He's got to say it. I think it's incredibly stupid to not cut a deal before you get someone elected president, and the only thing you get is a federal holiday and nothing tangible out of it. As Turner approvingly interjected, "You better talk about it. Oh yes, oh yes." And honestly, I kind of disagree with Killer Mike in that I doubt that Clyburn really cares about getting Juneteenth a federal holiday, and was just kind of happy because he likes Joe Biden. He wants Joe Biden to be president. He's always liked Joe Biden. He wasn't about getting any deal. It was about helping his friend, who he's worked with probably for a while, get across the line and get into power. Like, that's incredible. It's just perfect for him. So, to this day, some Democrats say, Mrs. Turner's hostility. Nina Turner. Folks, Nina Turner did this. She cost Clinton key votes on the left in the swing states that decided the 2016 election. So they are bitter. They are raging about this. They think that Nina Turner was the reason why they didn't win in Wisconsin, not the fact they couldn't even campaign there. It's so great. It's so delicious. They never give up. It's cute, actually. In an interview Tuesday, Turner blanched at any notion of disloyalty to the party, for which he had served as a Cleveland City Councilwoman, a state senator, the Democratic nominee for Secretary of State, and a two-time convention delegate for Barack Obama when Biden shared his ticket. I wish people were more concerned about the suffering that I have enumerated more than the colorful words I have used, she said. Clyburn said colorful words did not factor into his endorsement, though. In an advertisement to begin running on Wednesday, he listed the names of past black members of Congress who represented Ohio and said they've been effective because they focused on you, not on themselves. And of course, the people of Ohio's 11 can speak for that. But of course, both Turner and Brown are black, as is Mrs. Fudge, whom Clyburn aggressively promoted to lead the Ag Department. Again, one of the great stories of the transition. Fudge requesting, I think quite appropriately, that she not be put in labor or HUD. Of course, she ended up being put in HUD because those are the two kind of stereotypically black positions to put a black cabinet person in. She said she was good at agriculture. She wanted to be put in agriculture. Biden put her in HUD. One of the more charming aspects of the Biden's transition. Brown carefully plays on Turner's outspokenness in her campaign. As a leader of the party, I'm truly skilled in building bridges and doing it without attacking people or insulting them, she said Tuesday. If sent to Washington, she added, I won't have to start with a long letter of apology. And I really don't think that Nina Turner is going to be apologizing to anybody, nor should she. She's not there to apologize. She's there to fight. Turner has a ready answer for that, pointing to the blistering attack of Kamala Harris, then a senator, directed at Biden during one of the presidential debates, where she said his policies had exacerbated racial justice. If those two can be side by side by now, then surely the president and I can come together, she said, though she added that her campaign is not about loyalty to any one person. She's really, I think, trying to build a people-powered campaign. She has been trying to make amends, commending the Biden administration for its pandemic response, its huge coronavirus package, and social policy proposals. And she said, ideology, not style, is the biggest issue confronting the Democratic Party. I think that's definitely right. So these generational shifts are absolutely a theme throughout the caucus across a number of different issues, Ocasio-Cortez says. That's why I think Nina's groundswell is exciting, because it's not any one person's endorsement. It's a sum of everything that we've seen. All right. So best of luck to Nina Turner there in her primary. I'm pretty sure it is sometime in the next 2 weeks. And we will, you better believe me, we're going to be covering it. That is for sure. So the special election will be, it's going to be August 3rd. My apologies. August 3rd. Prior to the November election, to the primary to fill that seat. So we're going to be following that. But let's move on now to this clip from the Daily Caller about Ilhan Omar and Jake Tapper. So, yeah, Jake Tapper, he's always been one of the most right-wing kind of foreign policy guys. One of those guys who loves to have Adam Kinzinger on and talk about, how Trump is letting down America by, trying to take troops out of Syria or whatever. He's a big supporter of Israel and really does kind of a weird little trick here in this interview with Ilhan Omar, bringing up these comments from 3 weeks ago that, everyone kind of wanted to move on for. But, of course, Tapper doing the work of the GOP, now that Trump is out of office, brings this up again for Omar.
After comments you made earlier this month about the U.S. and Israel, you were questioning Secretary of State Blinken about where victims of war crimes could get justice. You made comments to him, and also you tweeted, quote, we must have the same level of accountability and justice.
Again, so just to quickly remind everything about this, so Omar was questioning Secretary of State Anthony Blinken in a meeting or a committee meeting, asking what should people who have been wronged by the U.S. and Israel do to get justice, if not through the ICC, because America has not agreed to cooperate with these and kind of shut down these investigations into itself and Israel in the criminal court. And, we allow that to happen for Hamas. We allow that to happen for the victims of Hamas, Afghanistan, and the Taliban. Not Afghanistan, but also, of course, the Taliban, which are America's enemies. But we don't allow that to happen for our own side and the people who we have as our friends, which are Afghanistan and Israel and, of course, ourselves. So that is the point she was trying to make, saying, quote, we must have the same level of accountability and justice for all victims of crimes against humanity. And, of course, the bad faith interpretation of that Tapper literally makes is that she thinks that they're the exact same. Personally, we've talked about this before. We played the Ryan Graham clip on it a few weeks ago. The United States and Israel have committed significantly more crimes. United States especially, by far. The United States is the number one leader in that list in terms of crimes against humanity committed. Afghanistan, Israel, Hamas, Taliban, be damned. So let's take a listen.
Justice for all victims of crimes against humanity. We have seen unthinkable atrocities committed by the U.S., Hamas, Israel, Afghanistan, and the Taliban, unquote. Ultimately, Democratic leaders said that equating the U.S. and Israel with Hamas and the terror and the Taliban.
Again, I love how he reads the tweet and then continues to misinterpret the line right in front of her. It's insane.
Quote, foments prejudice. And as you know, a group of Jewish House Democrats wrote a letter to President Biden saying that accusing Israel of acts of terror, as you and other members of the squad have done, is anti-Semitic. Do you regret these comments?
I don't. I think it's really important to think back to the point that I was trying to make. Obviously, I was addressing Secretary of State Blinken. The cases are put together in front of the ICC. ICC has been investigating. I know that some of my colleagues don't lend legitimacy to the ICC, but I tend to think that people around the world who have experienced injustice need to be able to have a place where they can go. And as a country that helped found the ICC and supported it, I think that it is really important for us to continue to find ways in which people can find justice around the world.
Some of your fellow House Democrats have been frustrated, as you know. They've told.
Yeah, so she kind of goes on, and I mean, at least really, I think the biggest thing here is credit to a huge amount of credit to someone like Ilhan Omar for coming out and not only just saying this in the first place, saying this like blatantly true fact, this blatantly true dynamic that's playing out here, but also saying, like, having the courage to, even though facing the incredible media onslaught from people like all the way from Jake Tapper to the person's Twitter account actually ended up tweeting this was this psycho on the right, Brigitte Gabriel, like all those people all throughout, quote unquote, respectable media and even irrespectable media, disrespectable, irreputable media is attacking her for this, and she is holding her ground. She is really, again, just in the same way kind of Mike Gravel did, may not have the biggest impact, may not have the biggest weight, but the fact that there is somebody out there with a pretty big amount of power levying these criticisms. I know, yeah, a lot of it, the criticism, the blowback she gets because she's wearing a hijab, and of course that many people ignore the fact that there's a white lady in the district literally next to hers named Betty McCollum saying pretty much the same things and getting none of the pushback. So, I mean, we should have a discussion about maybe why that is. But nonetheless, the pushback continues. So pretty much what she's saying here is literally, this is Ben Jacobs. I don't know where he works, but probably for some, I'm pretty sure he was the guy who got body slammed by, a Republican representative a few years back. But after all the coordinated effort to get Omar to apologize for her comments at the time, this is pretty remarkable. The most charitable explanation is that she is doing a rapid response for Paul Gosar. So pretty much calling her a Nazi there. Paul Gosar, again, doing events this weekend with Nick Fuentes, who is literally an admitted white supremacist. So pretty much saying that, yeah, it's doing rapid response work, attacking the Jews. That's what Ilhan Omar does best. So I think the best response to that is from this guy at Guy Friere on Twitter saying, I think the best explanation is that she's correct and therefore feels no need to apologize. Like, that is, I think, one of the biggest things that we need to highlight there is that she's correct. And if anything, the truth goes even further. All right. That is all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for joining us. We will be back on Friday.